bringing a lot of the themes that have already been spoken about today around the client conversation and where are you spending the times, and are you spending enough time in the client conversations. We're going to couch that in best interest, and how does it meet best interest. The way that we're going to do this is we're going to do a role play. So I've got on the stage with me Mark Weingarth, the Senior Business Development Manager at Macquarie, spends a lot of time speaking to businesses like yours about implementing managed account solutions. So we've had a lot of these conversations with our partners around how they're going to implement their managed account solutions with their clients. And we also have Sean on the stage, and imagine that this is a client review situation, and Sean is the compliance bubble in your head as you're speaking to your clients. So imagine having compliance in the room when you're having your client conversation. We're going to do 2 role plays here. The first one is going to be around pretty much an investment-led conversation, and where we find that a lot of advisors are really quite comfortable. And the second one is going to be an objectives-led conversation, and that's really just around listening a little bit more carefully to what the clients need. And in both, we're going to introduce the managed account, but in 2 very different ways. And then Sean is going to pick it apart for us. Okay, so we have the scenario is up on the screen, and the client has come in for their annual review. Good afternoon, Mark. How are you?
I'm well, Bianca. Yourself?
Haven't seen you in about 12 months.
Yeah, it's been about that long, yeah.
Okay, great. So just to recap, really pleased to let you know that your portfolio has performed in line with its risk and return objectives that was set around 2 years ago now. And, we take a lot of pride in our investment philosophy. And so we spend a lot of time on the strategic asset allocation. And I'm the CIO, as you know, and I work with my partner, and we sit in the room and we take all the research and we look around the globe and we look at the macroeconomic indicators, and we're looking at the volatility index, and we're just making sure that your strategic asset allocation is absolutely perfect for you. And we take a lot of pride in our investment expertise and our investment experience. And there's a lot going on in the market right now, blah, 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 blah. And do you realise that, across the globe, there's different things happening, blah, 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 blah. And, that there's a real, we're spending a lot of time, just making sure that we give you the best investment portfolio. How does that sound?
Confusing.
Okay, right.
But good, yeah.
Yeah, okay. But anyway, it doesn't matter, because what I really am here to talk to you about today is a managed account. Whole industry's doing this. I just went to a conference. Everybody has adopted this. This is definitely the way to go. We don't want to miss out on this. It's a smarter way to manage your portfolio. It's the way that we're going to move forward with this. It's just, I don't need to come to you to make the changes on the investments. So that's really smart, really efficient. It's just a better way to really manage your portfolio. But the investment outcomes should pretty much fairly be in line. Again, it's going to be our investment philosophy and all our best ideas in that portfolio, but we can make the changes on your behalf. And the best part is it's going to be cheaper. How's that sounding?
It sounds complicated, but if it's going to be cheaper, I trust your judgment.
Oh, but we're in a trusted relationship here, so it should be okay, and we'll look to implement this for you.
Let's do it then.
Great.
Sure.
Okay. Look, is it on? Yeah, it's really interesting when you go through this. So there are a couple of quite fundamental aspects that we look at here. I mean, if we were in the room, I probably would have dozed off quite early in that discussion anyway, or fled horrified when you got into the first series of blah, blah, blah. Look, one of the things that would have struck everyone here is that the interest and the engagement of the client just wasn't there. There was nothing about the client's objectives. There was nothing about why the managed account's good for them. Now, there was clearly a lot inferred about why it was good for you. And that's fine. But you've got a couple of things in addition to your best interest duty. One, you've got your client priority. Right? So whose interests were you actually looking after? Client didn't understand what you're talking about, and we see that a lot. That's not limited to managed account discussions. We see a lot of situations where advisors and clients aren't communicating. Okay, we see a lot of situations where the clients aren't engaged and they don't understand what's going on. So here we've got a discussion where it's driven by you, it's driven by your, I presume, commercial imperatives there. It's great that you've found something popular that everyone's talking about. That's probably the easiest thing. And you've missed cryptocurrencies, so you've gone onto the next best thing. So you found something to talk about. You've identified a possibility here, but there is absolutely no concern about the client's needs or objectives. You're relying on data that's 2 years old, so we didn't bother to even ask that question. And you could have asked and simply ignored him like you did during the course of the conversation. So it's good that you at least started, you at least checked in with the client. But fundamentally, I mean, forget about the disclosure issues. The fundamental principle of FOFA and what we're all trying to achieve is the client's informed consent. Yeah. And so the question here is, did you in fact have that at any point in time?
I didn't ask. I didn't ask a single question.
Yeah.
I just assumed that the objectives haven't changed from 2 years ago. How did you feel, Mark, during that conversation?
It just felt like you were just telling me how it is pretty much, and telling me what I should do. Yeah, which is why I kind of go to you as an advisor, but it was just information overload and technical blah, blah, blah.
So there are at least 3 or 4 other things that Bianca failed to do or that did incorrectly. What do you think they are? Anyone? No?
Yeah,
Let's Toby got it.
Yes. Yeah. I didn't ask a single question. Everything was assumed based on 2 years ago. The objectives were set 2 years ago. I was happy that the portfolio had returned in line with the risk and return objectives, which I don't even know what they are because they were set so long ago. So yeah, there was no update on their circumstances at all.
And is that important?
Absolutely.
And so why is it important?
Well, simply from how can you possibly have best interest if you don't know what the client wants?
Yeah. So, but even apart from the best interest piece, the appropriateness of the advice. So there was no way you could actually verify the advice puts him in a better position or is even fit for purpose because you don't know what his purpose is.
Exactly.
So realistically, there's no obligation on you to go back necessarily and look at those things as long as the advice can remain appropriate. But the fact is it can't unless you're checking in. Mm-hmm. So 2 years is probably too long to go through.
Yep.
Has anyone got an advice process in their business that relies on data that's 2 to 3 years old routinely? I just know. I just thought I'd ask in case there's anyone from ASIC in the room. We'll just save time. No? Okay, so you all understand the need to update information. What else went wrong in that scenario? What else would you not have done? Hopefully.
There's no ROA document or SOA document outlining what the proposal is, the change in product from one product to the next, whether there's any loss of benefits from the existing product to transfer to the new product.
Yep.
There's no time frames to the transfer. This is our advice. We'll come back in 2 weeks. Having read it, about and asking the question.
Well, yeah, you've known.
I'm not sure what that role play was designed. I think if that's something you got to deal with under 15 minutes,
No. Yeah.
Yeah, probably
that's right.
An unsustainable business in the long term. So you've identified all the 947D requirements, a replacement product issue. There was none of that. There was no consideration of consequences and implications. There was no assessment of anything that's going to occur as a consequence of moving ahead. And you also nailed the issue that there's no informed consent. He's got no idea. He's happy to do it because he trusts someone, and we all know trust is great. It's a great currency of financial planning until it disappears. And then there's no risk mitigation strategy for the advisor. There's nothing to support the sustainability of the business. What's the other part that was curious about the way she approached it?
To speak at a conference and I've got this new idea. A little bit too quick, perhaps. It's the same research and so.
Yes.
I thought you were highlighting the fact that very few people remember what they pick up at conferences. But no, yeah, their ability to synergise that and to process it without much consideration is an important aspect. But there was one other thing that she did that I thought was really interesting. Yeah. So without any assessment of the client's circumstances, their portfolio, their situation, or really any understanding of the product, it's cheaper. Yeah, okay. Look, it's better to at least say that than to say it's just better. You know, don't worry about the detail. It's better for you. Let's move ahead. But still, it's inappropriate. It's not a recommendation that would be sustainable. Is there anything else that you picked up that you would not do? No? Apart from that, apart from the speed, it was generally in alignment with your advice process?
Let's hope not. Okay. Let's move on to scenario number 2. Where am I pointing? It's coming up? Oh, yeah. There. Okay. Hello, Mark. How are you?
Really well, thanks.
How are things going?
Good, family's well, job's busy.
Great. What's changed? What's changed in your life? What's happening? What's going on around your financial goals? What do we need to be talking about today? What would you really like to focus on?
So the big life changes for me recently have been I've started a new job in the last 6 months, which means I'm travelling to the US 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. Mm-hmm. Lucky enough to had our second set of twins, so pretty busy in the house as well. So work's really busy. I'm travelling a lot. It's really busy at home.
Fantastic. Congratulations.
So probably need to have a look at my life, TPD, trauma, income protection, all of the above. Probably
Absolutely.
my will, have a look at that.
Yes.
From an investments point of view, I mean, there's all this, I just need something easy. There's all this noise around the industry about all these companies doing whatever, or good or bad. So I'd like to know where my money is being invested, really. Mm-hmm. The tax bills are through the roof. I don't want to be paying any unnecessary taxes, as does anyone. And just really want some consistency in the outcomes for me and my wife, because they haven't been in the past. I'd like to see something a bit more consistent.
Okay, right. So let me just go through those objectives one by one. In terms of great regarding your career, and that's a big change, and congratulations on the twins, that's fantastic news. But we really need to re-look at your financial objectives. We set those a while ago now, and we need to start to check back in to see if they're still appropriate for your circumstances. Given the amount of travel that you're going to be doing, there's various solutions that we can have a look at that are available in the market today, and one of those is a managed account. I'm not sure, have you heard about a managed account at all?
No, I can't say
Okay, right. So really all it is, it's just an automated solution that sits around your investments. And it allows us to make changes on your behalf. Now, of course, the changes still sit within your risk parameters and the asset allocation that we've set up originally, and can reset today, absolutely. And we're still going to continue to partner with quality managers, so none of that's going to change. What does change is we don't have to come to you for every single change that we make on the portfolio, which means that we can keep you invested at all times. So when you're travelling, we can't reach you, we'll be able to make those portfolio changes.
So can you take my money without me asking for informing you though?
Absolutely not. So the discretion is simply around the investment portfolio, the changes that we can make. So maybe we're looking at a particular sector at the moment that we don't like, and we may want to come out of that sector, for example. So it could be mining or the banks or one of those, and then we could change the allocation that way. Does that make sense?
Yes. Somewhat,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. And then on the execution side, it allows automated trading. So we can actually trade the portfolio at the same time. Now, whether we want yours and your wife's portfolios to have exactly the same returns, that's probably something that we also need to talk about in terms of, does that make sense, and do you have exactly the same objectives? But again, we can try and figure that out. However, if we do set them up that they do have the same objectives, then we can trade the two portfolios at exactly the same time. So you won't have that discrepancy that you've seen in the past. So that's what, this is some of the benefits that a managed account can deliver. The other one is that you actually own the underlying assets. So you've got the full transparency, and we can work very closely with the accountant to manage those parcels to ensure that they're very aware of what's changing, what's moving, so that you can be on top of your tax as well. And then we'll make sure that we keep you updated on the changes. So we'll probably check in around monthly if that works for you to start off with. And then we can look at doing video conferencing as well, so that we can keep you updated on your progress. And we certainly have to look at your insurance and your will, given your family changes in the circumstances. And we can make a personal recommendation around who we can partner you with to get that will fulfilled for you. We have a great lawyer who works with a lot of our clients, and we can look to connect you with them. How are you feeling right now? Do you understand what this managed account solution can deliver? The investments will not change, and we'll continue to partner with quality managers to deliver the outcomes that you've become accustomed to. However, there is a change around how we're going to engage with you on your investment portfolio.
Yeah, look, I'd welcome something like that. I mean, I just want something easy, something I can log in, see online what's happening. You can keep me updated via WebEx or through email. That would be much better than some of the technical stuff that I used to get every 6 or 12 months. Mm-hmm. So something like really kind of high level, what's happening in the economy that I can talk to people about in business and whatnot, and not so much in the detail.
Great. Okay, so just to summarise, a managed account, it will be a new sort of product, so we need to go through all the disclosures there. So we'll go through all the fees as well. Now, there may be some additional charges, but that will all be disclosed, and we'll talk you through each of those charges. And then again, it will deliver the additional benefit of us not having to contact you every time we make the change, and you'll have that added transparency in the reporting in your portfolio. How are you feeling?
Look, if it's easier and it's easier to understand and it's a little bit more expensive, I'm okay with that, and I trust your judgment on it.
Great.
Yeah, I'm struggling with the position of being constructive or constructively critical. So let's open up. What do you think was done really well in that dialogue there? Nothing? She didn't do anything well? Wow, you're harder than I am. You guys should be in compliance. Come on, she must have done something right. What did she do right?
The question at the beginning about what's going on was nice.
Yeah, that's it. She made eye contact. She smiled.
Allowing to answer the question.
Yep.
She wasn't rabbiting on and not allowing the question. I want to know what this guy wrote for better, though, with 2 sets of twins.
I think the bigger question with the 2 sets of twins and the travel is, does the travel lead to the 2 sets of twins? or does the 2 sets of twins lead to the travel? So what else do you think was done well or badly in that interaction?
She checked in with him about whether he understood what the managed account program was going to do.
Yeah, checked in.
Checking that he understood the benefits on that.
Yep. Yep. So if you had to mark this out of 10, what would you give it? 3. Wow. Any advance on 3? I would have given it higher than 3. 8. Yeah, look, there were a lot of good things that were done in that interaction. So checking in with the client. One of the things that I think could have been done better, and I'm not suggesting you did it badly, was demonstrating the real advantage for the client. So you came back to it from time to time, but which one of his specific objectives were you trying to, and why was managed accounts the solution? So he was travelling and he was doing this. Was it enough? What is his portfolio large enough to justify it? We don't know, because, and we'll presume that he's got a diversified portfolio
Yep.
and a substantial one.
Mhm.
Fine. We'll just assume that's all his money. Like, we don't know if he's got money elsewhere, right? So we don't know if there are other considerations we should have taken from that. The appropriateness of the recommendation, like, you went through a lot of the areas, and you clearly there's got to be a level of analysis and consideration you do, because one of the points you probably should have emphasised there is that, you know, as much as we don't like the best interest duty, because integrity doesn't need rules, as much as we don't like the best interest duty, that's one of the things that should have been front and centre of the conversation. So if you look at ASIC's RG90, one of the things they're suggesting there is every time you make a recommendation, you should tie it back to the best interest duty and demonstrate why it's in his best interest. So why is it in your best interest to get a managed account? And you know what those, because you dealt with them, you addressed them through the conversation, but you didn't really bring it home and tie it from that perspective. You have an unusual approach to disclosure. You know, we'll get to all the disclosure stuff. The problem with that is, like, quite apart from the fact that disclosure's a poor substitute for informed engagement, the problem with the disclosure part is it's not about making the disclosure, it's making sure the client understands what it means. What are the impacts and how does this all fit together? Because the solution might be ideal for those circumstances, you know, but it's going through that process as well.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a couple of other things that I think we probably could have done. Like, I would have rated that 8 out of 10. It's a clear pass from that perspective. But there are a couple of minor things that your compliance people might have picked up. What do you think, if you were the compliance people, what would you have picked up? Would you have, yeah?
No research into existing product, no research into an alternative.
Yep.
Features, benefits, the sort of covered, maybe not.
Yep. One of the interesting parts was the conversation kept coming back to risk profile and risk objectives without ever saying what they were. You know, and we might look at whether or not we can align your portfolio with your wife's, and we'll consider whether that's. But never did we discuss or even ask about, has your approach to risk changed? Do you want a managed account? Is that something that interests you, or do you want to, you know, invest it all in Bitcoin or gold and put it under your bed? It's not a question that we ask. So the appropriateness aspect of it, because remember, if we go back to ASIC's test require you to do two things to demonstrate best interest. First, that it's fit for purpose. So what you've recommended is fit for purpose, and we can fiddle around with that, and I think we can massage it, you know, to make sure that it works. But the second element of that is, he in a better position. So if he implements your recommendation, is he going to be in a better position? Now, to the point there, we don't have any financials, we don't know any of those assets, so we'll just have to assume that. But those should have been points that should have come out in that discussion, so that it's not a product solution looking for an avenue, but a solution to an identified problem or series of problems. So that was it. Is there anything else that you think she missed, or that I missed? And I won't hold it against you if you found stuff that I didn't. I mean, I'll resent it, of course, but I won't punish you for it. Anything else that you would have done differently? Should have done differently?
In noting that this is going to be an overall more expensive solution, we might have delved down into where does that extra expense arise.
And that's right, and where is the benefit? So one of the aspects of dealing with the best interest duty in this respect would have been to go, you know what, we've got to crunch the numbers. So once we do the calculation, it might be that there's not enough of a benefit for you. It's not going to be justified in terms of the additional costs. It really doesn't suit your objectives, in which case we'll go back. Or, you know, it's going to be more efficient. Now, we always talk about efficiency, but one of the difficulties that we see when we look at recommendations, not necessarily for managed accounts, but for products, you know, whether they're, anyway. Advisors often talk about efficiencies. Oh, we're recommending this because it's going to increase efficiencies. They never tie the efficiencies back to the client's circumstances and the benefit to the client. Now, the previous presentation did it very well, because they talked about it's more efficient, and what that means for the client is we've actually got the time to prepare for the reviews. We've got the time to put the time and energy in to looking at your portfolio and analysing it. Now, that seems like such a basic thing. It's not a basic thing because so many advisors miss it. They look at the efficiencies in terms of their business. Now, it's great that recommending managed accounts or whatever else, wraps or whatever, is great for your business. It's got to tie back to a client benefit. So what is the benefit of that efficiency? And if it's going to be better reviews, more detailed reviews, better service, fantastic, articulate that. Don't just leave it as it's going to be better, it's going to be cheaper or whatever. They are pointless things to use to defend or to prove the appropriateness and suitability of your advice. Anything else?
Just a comment on that. I think the industry or planners have been used to for too long thinking about best interest in the form of lower costs.
Yeah.
And I think while that's an important consideration, we've heard it from Stanford Brown as well, and I know it's been my experience in the practices we've worked with this. This is not necessarily about reducing costs.
No.
And so you have to go to a real length to actually join those dots and make sure it is better for the client. But better for the client doesn't necessarily mean lower costs.
No,
That could be one of the points, or it may not be.
Yep.
But the fact they make it better transparency or more proactive management of their investments or all sorts of things.
Yep.
That I don't think advisors go to enough length to actually think about and explain and challenge themselves to say, well, is this really better?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. And a lot of times it does not have to be a cheaper product, unless, of course, the client's needs an objective. If it's driven to minimise fees and costs, then you're pushing it uphill. But there is no obligation on you to recommend cheaper products. Your obligation is to recommend a product that's appropriate and suitable for his needs, so they can be more expensive. The only difficulty you've got when you're recommending more expensive products, and there are two of them, we'll break them down. One is demonstrating why it's to his benefit. So it's a more expensive product, fantastic. What's the benefit for me? Well, if there isn't one. And the other one is client priority, particularly when you're the investment manager, particularly when it's an in-house product or a white label or whatever else, is that whose interests are you actually looking after? If you're recommending the managed account, is it because it's your option and that benefits you? Now, the law doesn't say that you can't benefit from a recommendation. What the law says is that you have to prioritise your client's interests, right? They have to be first and foremost, and you have to act in their best interest. And the best interest piece is not limited to the recommendation, obviously. It's limited to, it applies to every aspect of your interaction with the client. So you're right. Advisors, I would like to think that advisors think about the consequences of recommending a more expensive product. I'd like to think they think about the implications and whatever else, but that they sometimes forget to document or articulate it. I'd rather, glass half full approach than whatever else. But it is a constant failure. Replacement product advice is a perennial issue in advice. It's about how much do we need to tell people, how much do we need to put in. And when replacement product advice is done badly, it's normally done badly for one of two reasons. One, the advisor hasn't really thought about what it is and doesn't understand the products enough to be able to do that. Or on the other hand, they go overboard and they tell absolutely everything. And there's a case called Evans and Branley which just said, look, when you tell clients everything, it's meaningless because they don't understand it, right? Comes back to informed engagement. And that was one of the great things I thought about the second role play is that they were both participating in the first one. The client's there, essentially a cameo appearance, whatever else. There's another point.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is some of what you're just talking about there a difference between a reasonable basis and what was the old rules, and we haven't well transitioned into best interest, and we tend to gravitate to what we used to do in the industry, which is, this is pretty reasonable, and move on.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. I think, look, we're all creatures of habit, and it's hard to move ahead. I was at a conference yesterday, and I opened up and we did all that stuff. And then the subsequent presenter later on in the afternoon was talking about reasonable basis. And I go, it hasn't been around since FOPA came in. And you're up there talking about it, and she's an expert in her field. And yet she didn't get some of the fundamental problems. But you're absolutely right, as an industry we haven't moved across, because we haven't internalised what it actually means to act in someone's best interest, because it's difficult.
Yeah, and the other thing on that conflict that you talked about, the new regulatory guide that took effect last October, wasn't it, says certain conflicts have to be avoided.
Yes. Yeah.
Significant conflicts have to be avoided. So there is a little
Yeah.
bit of a dangerous area because it doesn't really well define what a significant conflict
No.
might be as opposed to just a regular
Yeah.
conflict.
As a lawyer, I love imprecision, right? I love ambiguity. It's fantastic. It's a bread and butter. The difficulty from the regulator's perspective is they can't get too prescriptive. And the moment they say anything that could be interpreted as prescriptive, half the industry embraces it, the other half condemns it, and we have problems coming from that. The difficulty we've got with certain conflicts of interest, and we've always had an obligation to manage conflicts of interest, and the difficulty we have there is identifying what those conflicts are in the first place. So a lot of practices, a lot of advisors, a lot of licensees don't even see that recommending a white label product is a conflict. Because they go, oh, it's a good product, right? And it's no different. So there's that issue there. Then you've got the issue about, okay, how do we deal with the conflict we've identified? Is it so fundamental? If we've appointed as an investment manager, if I've appointed as an investment manager my wife, and doing all that type of stuff, there's a conflict that we probably cannot manage. It's a conflict we should avoid. And this is the other part of your obligation to manage conflicts of interest. Identify it, figure out which ones you can manage, and the ones that are so significant and so material just have to be avoided. And the difficulty as an industry, I think we're very bad at avoiding conflicts of interest because our presumption is we can manage it. Human beings are very bad at managing conflicts as a general rule.
Thank you. Thank you, Sean. Okay, so this is not based on anecdotal evidence by us. We've actually gone out and surveyed our clients and asked them what they value in an advice relationship. And this is our propensity survey, and we've been doing it since 2012. And there's 26 attributes that we look at, and this is what the advisors are telling us. As soon as it comes up, there we go. So the first one is effectively hygiene. You manage my portfolio for risk and return, and that was in both conversations. But then it starts to go out into, you connect me with the right people, you're educating me, you're updating me on my progress. This is all about personalisation. Clients want an experience out of the advice piece, and this is how they want to be treated. They want to be educated. They want to understand what a managed account is. Out of the 26 attributes, being the investment expert, so that first role play, that first scenario, the 13th attribute. And fees is second last. So it's phenomenal, these results. And when we show this to advisors, there's a little bit of a kind of moment around, right, so we're really putting a lot of energy and resources into what our clients are not valuing. So the challenge I put out to you is customise your client experience, automate everything else. Use your managed account, automate your back office. Your clients are not judging you based on the last time they spoke to you. They're judging it based on their last service experience, which was highly personalised, customised to them. Make sure you have enough time and that you're spending enough time on the quality conversations to be able to meet your best interest duty and to ensure that clients keep coming back for the right reasons. Thank you.